Welcome, everyone, to the new Faculty Academy Tenure Track. How you doing? Tenure Track session. We are joined today by some wonderful administrators who I think you will hear some wonderful guiding words, and I hope some comforting words. I know whenever I've talked to my dean down there, he's, I'm not as scared of tenure as I used to be. Okay, I think sometimes it can be a scary word. But let me just tell you who everyone is in case you don't know. So it will be to your right, to my left at the very end, we have Jacqueline Hanson, and then we have Dr. Bob Purvine, Dr. Stacy Stone, and Dr. Timothy Todd. Now, they all represent different areas and colleges, so maybe when they do speak, they can tell you some things about how it might work in their areas and maybe what their purview is in this process. The panel we did last week, I had questions that we did, but I didn't know if you all wanted to start, or would you like for me to use the question prompts to kind of get us going?
It's your show.
Do you all have questions already immediately? I mean, they're just something you're dying to ask to get us started, or if not, you need to start asking questions of them. Okay, then I'll just start. That's fine. I just, I want to make it sure that, that it's going to work for you. So one of the things, when we hear that word tenure, it can be a little daunting, but I think there's some good reason behind it. So I would like for our panelists to kind of discuss what the purpose of tenure is, why it's really relevant in the higher education scheme, and then really what the process is at Murray State. So really, whoever wants to jump in first.
Well, I don't know. You want me to? Okay.
You're the highest ranking academic.
Okay, I should get to assign who answers questions.
Tenure quiz.
There you go. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for picking Murray State University as a place to start or continue your career. I'm Bob Purvine. Right now I'm the Associate Provost for Graduate Education and Research. I've been here at Murray State for 31 years, about half of it as a faculty member. I came here as a mathematics professor, and I went through the tenure and promotion process, and then gradually moved into administrative sorts of activities. Tenure, I think you can probably say there are at least three good reasons for having tenure at a public university, or at any university. It protects academic freedom. It allows us to attract and retain quality faculty members. I know that there are discussions throughout academia now about replacing tenure with various kinds of termed contract sorts of situations. As long as, and by the way, I'm not in favor of that, just so you know. But as long as tenure is the norm at public universities, we really need to continue offering tenure to our faculty in order to remain competitive. I dare say if 5 of you had found out now Murray State doesn't have a tenure process, you might have thought twice about interviewing here for a position. And then the third thing is that it provides a measure or a level of institutional stability, which kind of goes along with retaining good faculty. But we have to have a core, a stable core of faculty who are here, who build institutional memory and kind of become the foundation on which the sort of the next generation of Murray State students, you know, going through. So, yeah, that's a little bit about why tenure.
I'd like to talk a little bit about why I'm a believer in the process that leads towards tenure. I'm Dr. Jacqueline Hansen. I'm a professor, and chair of the Department of Early Childhood and Elementary Education at Murray State. I've been at Murray State for about 15 years now, and before then I taught elementary school for 865 years. I was working on my degrees. When I was at your stage in my academic career at Murray State, tenure was like all capital letters, kind of like a few flames spitting out. And, the process was not as developed as it is now, you know, to support people's efforts. The reason that I really believe in the process is, at least in the College of Ed and Human Services, and I believe across campus too, we've developed a systematic way to really support new faculty's efforts towards achieving tenure. And the main goal isn't necessarily the tenure. The main goal is to help them grow as people and as professionals and as academians. And especially in the college of education programs, we really want to make sure we help develop their teaching proficiency, because that's one of the areas that we're primarily focused on, and to ensure that our future teachers are being taught the way they should be taught, because they learn by watching how people are teaching them. We help our new faculty grow in their confidence, because a lot of new faculty are transitioning, like in our college, they're transitioning from a public sector type position into a higher education position, and the two are similar, but they're really different from each other. And so we're helping them learn things like how to balance their time, how to set priorities, how do you find out how to submit a proposal for a presentation, how do you go about trying to get something published. I mean, it's those kinds of things that not everybody knows how to do when they first come in. So we help them with the ropes on that. Another reason I really believe in the tenure process, not only because more developed faculty are best for our students and our programs, that's the main reason, but also the process that we use as we're working closely mentoring folks all the way through the process, it really creates a bond. So you develop like a meaningful long-term relationship, and so it not only grows the new faculty, but it grows the existing faculty and keeps us fresh too, because we keep re-seeing the world with new eyes and growing in our ability not only to help them, but also to help ourselves keep fresh.
Anybody have anything else to add?
Ditto.
Okay. All right. So, what are some things that our new faculty here do you think should be maybe doing now, or what they need to start thinking about in their adventure, in their journey on the tenure track? Given that they are first year, you know, what should we be doing?
Let me take a stab at that one. Tim Todd is my name. I'm with the Bower & Fine College of Business, and I think like all of us here, we all came as faculty members, and then we kind of evolved into administrative kind of role. But I've been blessed to be here for 21 years, not quite as long as Dr. Purvine, but I'm catching him. And from a tenure earning process, I wanted to, in addressing Melanie's question, but also in some of the thoughts that I've had to share with you, in trying to keep it simple, easy to remember, and some soundbite kind of information. Tenure earning here at Murray State takes place over a 6-year period, as all of you know. And then at the end of that 6 years, the year of tenure earning is an 8-step process. And the 8th step focuses on your academic committee, then your chair, then your college committee and your dean, then the university committee and the provost, and then the president, and then ultimately the Board of Regents conveys tenure and promotion to the faculty of Murray State. So that takes 2 full semesters to be adjudicated all the way through. In answering the question, from day one, my chair who hired me in 1995, I'll never forget it, he sat me down and he told me, he said, right now, create a manila folder with the heading Attaboy. Okay? And he said, create an attaboy or attagirl or attawoman or whatever. Create a file that when you receive a nice note from a student, when you receive some type of notoriety or recognition, when you're quoted in someone else's, in an article for either a periodical or the local newspaper, whatever it is, anything that you receive in a complimentary way, put it in that file. I found that very, very useful because I knew everything I did. At the end of 6 years, you know, I didn't have really a lot there, but you had to organize it. So there was a little bit of time that was involved in that summer when you put all your materials together in that big folder. But having a one place for those kinds of things, I thought was a very, very strong and good idea. And I wanted to pass that on to you in answering that question and talking about some of my experience too. The last thing, and then I'll be quiet and let Dean Stone and others talk. If something happens, the tenure earning process at this university is supposed to be very transparent. And as Dr. Hansen said, I think we've improved since 20 plus years ago, and I think we've matured the process throughout all of the 6 colleges and the university libraries. But at the end of the day, if you go up for tenure and you're surprised at the outcome, either way, pro or con, then the chair did not do his or her job and the dean did not do his or her job. There should be no surprises at the end of that experience, whether it goes good for you or not. And ideally, if it looks like it's not going very well, if the fit isn't there, that doesn't make anyone a bad person. It just means that the fit isn't there. So hopefully the faculty would choose to voluntarily, you know, relocate and seek out happiness elsewhere before you would be refused tenure. That's not a good thing to happen. That happens occasionally. It doesn't happen a lot here, but it does happen occasionally. But I stress that with our chairs in the business school. We have 6 of them. And there's transparency involved in that. You meet with the chair, you meet with the dean every year, and I think that goes with all the colleges. And we go through the document of teaching, research, and service, and we have a feedback mechanism there, and everybody should understand what's happening. And then the next year happens, we look at performance, we do the same thing, and by the end of that 6 years, you've got a lot of feedback loops that are closed. So I think it's incumbent on faculty to keep those kinds of records. Obviously, you know, the good things that happen and all the nice accolades that you receive, but it's very incumbent on administrators, the chair and the dean particularly, to make sure the process is transparent and it goes well.
So I want to thank you for being here, because I think it is important for you to be thinking about tenure from your first semester, as we've all been saying. I agree with Dean Todd that you want a folder or a drawer or someplace to put things. And even though we're in this electronic age where you think, okay, I'm just going to have an electronic folder, you're going to get thank you notes. Or there'll be articles in the paper that people will send to you. Hey, I saw this in the Ledger and Times. So you're going to have hard copies. If you're planning to scan them in and put them in an electronic folder, fine. But I suggest that you actually have a folder where you can put these hard copies. And you might wait until the summer before your tenure application to organize those, but I think you'll probably do it once a year as you're getting ready for your annual review. Dr. Hansen said that one benefit of tenure is the bond that you form, and to think about that relationship that you're forming with the colleagues in your department. And I think we have really progressed at Murray State. From the time before I was here. I've been here 16 years, and I've heard horror stories about tenure before I came in 2000, so that relationship is no longer adversarial. I mean, it never should have been, but I think that it was in some departments. This really is supposed to be a supportive, transparent process. If you are in a department where the department chair does not meet with you to go over your annual review, ask for that meeting, because I don't know that it happens in all departments. And so if it's not happening, the department chair is not going to be upset that you request a meeting. And even if it's a positive review, still request a meeting to talk about, to thank that department chair for the positive review, but to find out how you can improve. Because sometimes there might be areas where the chair of the department committee or the dean might see where you could improve, but not necessarily put that in the documentation. You never know. And so you want to seek out that feedback. Because we can always improve. Everyone can. And the other thing, I did bring with me, our college has a handbook of, well, it's not a handbook, it's guidelines, processes, and procedures. And we have a section on putting together the tenure packet. And this is from a former dean. I mean, it's so detailed, it even tells our faculty what inch binder to buy. And so I'm going to share this with you because I think it's really helpful. And I don't think that other colleges have this kind of detailed guide. This is obviously in response to getting packets that weren't how we're supposed to look. And so it's something to think about when you are actually putting your packet together, that although you're thinking about submitting it to your department and really concerned about the recommendation that you achieve from your department, that packet, as you said, moves on up the chain. And so it needs to look a certain way because at the university level, we expect to see a certain order. You don't want committee members having to flip through looking for something and becoming frustrated because they can't figure out where this one document would be. So I'll give this to you as we're leaving. But again, start collecting information now, and you might do an electronic list as well as, because we don't always put everything on our CVs, but you want to make a list of everything that you're doing because there will be forms. Depends on how things are revised. Sometimes residential college work, you're going to need that. And just so you have a reminder, because in 5 years from now, you may not remember that you did a study session in a residential college, and you might be able to put that into your narrative, your application.
You need to advocate for yourself. And as they mentioned, like if the chair doesn't make an appointment to talk with you, you make an appointment to talk with your chair. Part of your own self-advocacy is become familiar with what the university policy is. And it is up on the Murray State homepage. And you can go ahead and read, it's like pages 75 to 85. Is everything you wanted to know in general about the university policy on tenure and promotion. And then within that context, those are pretty broad parameters that were mutually agreed upon by all of the intercollegiate committee and senate and everybody from the university. But within those umbrella guidelines, each of your colleges may have more specific guidelines that fall within those parameters. They can't exceed the requirements at the university level, but they will provide more specific guidance for you, even down to the size of binder that you use, okay? And as part of that, different colleges also have different ways of going about things. Like during the time that I've been in the College of Ed and Human Services, we, once we started to do a more systematic approach to supporting our new faculty, we started off by assigning individual mentors. And you might have that system, some of you nod your head, some of you have that system, like I mentored some of the new faculty that were coming in. And I'd sit down with the new faculty regularly and say, how's it going? How can I help you submit this proposal for presentation? Say, what, it's your 4th year and you haven't published anything? We need to get busy. You know, that kind of thing, so I could kind of monitor their progress. That slowly evolved over the years until last year when we became a blended college of Ed and then the human service portion blended into our college. We've cooperatively created a new set of guidelines and a new process. And now we have what's called the new faculty development sessions that are hosted about once a month throughout the year. And tenured faculty come and do panel presentations and things. It's like a microcosm of what we're doing here. But we also have one or more representatives from each of our departments who are dedicating a large portion of their time to really mentoring the new faculty. And as part of that process, up until recently, we had a formative tenure portfolio each year that people would submit. They submitted it at a different time of the year than the annual review, which was always a lot of extra excitement for everybody. And so that layer has kind of been combined for this year. We're piloting a new way of doing that. But basically, each year when you do need to update your Vita at least once a year. If you're really being super productive, update it when it happens. That's part of the add a person, to be politically correct.
Add a person.
Add a racer. That's part of the add a racer. It's like, oh gosh, I got my name in print. And that is so exciting if you haven't had that happen. It's like, I can't believe somebody actually published it. And so what you do on things like the journal articles and the presentations is you put it in your Vita and APA style or whatever right away, the newest item first, so you can have bragging rights, okay? When you first start, you'll just have general categories like research and creative activity and service. You'll just have like a general category, and then as time goes on, you get another add a racer moment when you get to start putting in subheadings like national presentations and state presentations. It's like, my gosh, I actually have something to put in there. I mean, like you start with a Vita that's like 1.5 pages long with 50 size font, and you end up with like a 40-page Vita with regular size font after a while. And so that's part of your add a racer thing. And then one thing I found that was helpful for me is instead of one manila envelope or whatever, I had a compartment in the hutch above my desk. Well, I had 3 shelves, one for teaching, one for research, one for service. And then if I had like a national presentation at reading conference where I present a lot, I'd make a cover of the outside of the program. I mean, a copy of the cover. I make a copy of the page where my presentation appears, and I highlight my name on it. I make sure the copy's nice to begin with and not kind of crooked and weird, you know, so I can actually use it. And I also always made copies and things of any kind of accolades or newspaper articles, and I just filed them on those little shelves. And then each year during my annual review, I'd put those items in my annual review notebook underneath those tabs. I have professionally typed tabs that looks nicer than handwritten. They're sticky notes, and just little things. We don't have designated like 1-inch binders or whatever. But one thing that helps is like make sure you use the same 3-hole punch so some of the papers aren't cattywampus in there. It just looks really nasty otherwise. And then as I wrote, I would write a narrative for each section as part of the annual review process in our college. And then each year, when I do my next review, I'd save that, you know, fall of 13 narrative as a fall of 14 narrative or whatever. And I updated according to what had been going on and revised the wording. And so by the time, and I included goals for each section. Like, this is my goal, and then at the beginning of the next year's review narrative, I'd say, this was my goal last year, this is how I met my goal, or how I'm going to continue to strive to meet my goal. And sometimes the goal setting is strongly encouraged by student ratings or chair's perceptions or observations or things that you can tell is a deficit area you need to work on. Anyway, so by the time that I went up for real tenure, my narratives were pretty much in pretty good shape already. And the hard part for me, as I'm sure this will be a shock to you, but the hard part for me was to try to limit my narrative to 1 page. Because it's easy to go on and on and on and on, and yes, you feel magnificent and you're very proud of celebrating all the opportunities you've had and the blessings you've bestowed, but bottom line is tenure committee people are very busy and they don't want to read several pages of what you have to say. So your Vita needs to be pretty much standalone, and your narrative is standalone Vita. And I still have copies of all that, because even though I'm a full professor for several years now, I'm kind of afraid like I might get rid of something I might need. I don't know who'd ever want it. I think Dr. Todd's gonna come over and check, make sure I have a copy of an article that I did a long time ago. Right. You also need to keep the electronic versions, and as a backup, I keep a paper print version of your student IAS ratings. Those are the required part. And then as you go, depending upon your college's guidelines, you need to have a systematic way of putting those on an Excel file or some kind of a matrix so that you keep them going as you do it. Otherwise, there's a lot of statistical opportunities when you're trying to prepare things at the last minute.
Anything else to add? I'm gonna pause and see if there are any questions so far from any of our faculty. Anything that you feel like you want to make sure you understand some things before we move on?
I have a question that's not very profound. I want to apologize for my voice. Has there ever been a situation in any of your memories where the intellectual freedom elements of tenure were needed to protect a faculty member at Murray State? Just kind of curious.
If it happened, I am not aware of it. I can't think of any situation where that has been an issue.
I don't know of one.
I've heard tales, but I don't have any information on that.
I haven't even heard a rumor of one. I mean, tenure won't protect you from violating sort of like your contract as a professor in terms of meeting class and treating students in the way they should be treated. But I haven't heard of issues with academic freedom. Because I don't think of those as academic freedom, the way.
Well, and the academic freedom is to ensure that when you're tenured, part of the positive outcomes of achieving tenure is that people may feel more comfortable expressing candid opinions during discussions, you know, especially if like their tenure committee type colleagues are sitting there. You know, I mean, like Dr. Stone said, I mean, of course, professional and within whatever your role is, but so if you've really been wanting to change the curriculum and you're afraid somebody might get upset if you want to change the curriculum because you're a new faculty member, you know, as a tenured faculty member, you want to change your curriculum and provide a good rationale, and you might feel just a little more comfortable having more of a collegial conversation about it. I'm probably not expressing that very well.
Any other questions?
I'd like to emphasize something that Jackie said. Definitely, if you haven't done so already, find out what the expectations are in your department. How many articles or grants or whatever it is that you need. Also, you might ask what excellent teaching looks like in your department. If it's a certain score on a student evaluations, what is that score? What's the minimum that you need to be satisfactory? Where is it supposed to be? Because they probably have an idea of where it should be. And I don't know that I would ask this year, but as you progress towards the time that you apply, be checking on service. What really are the service expectations? If this isn't written down anywhere in a department handbook, then ask. And you may even have to ask for clarification of what's in the department handbook, because some are clearer than others.
What could be some of those examples of service? I mean, I know it might vary from college to college, but just, you know, what does service look like? I think teaching and research, well, maybe research might not be as straightforward as it sounds, but, you know, definitely service seems a little ambiguous a little bit.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, there are some of the obvious things that come to mind are committee service. Departments have various departmental committees, curriculum committees, textbook committees, and on and on. And then at the collegiate level, there are committees that need faculty input. And then at the university level, there are other committees. So committee work, from my experience, it tends to be the case that a good chair will not ask new faculty members too much too soon. As a new faculty member, probably serving on one or two departmental committees is plenty of service, okay? The longer that you're here, and the more that people get to know you, and the more you need people to get to know you outside of your department, then you kind of tend to expand a little bit on some collegiate committees and later on university committees. But that's an avenue for service. We have, I'm sure you've been exposed to our residential college system, doing things in the residential college system. That's a type of service as well. Most departments will have kind of an idea of typical sorts of service activities, and it'll vary from department to department based on the mission of the department.
And it also, in our college, we're looking for services related to your field. And so, you know, contributing a lot of outside time to the Paducah Kennel Club in the College of Education, I mean, we'd be so happy that you really enjoy being with all the fur babies, but it's not something that contributes to your ability to teach. But if you were like in veterinary science or something, you know, that would make sense. So outreach to the community, outreach to agencies within the community that are related to your field. And then, for example, in College of Ed, some of our faculty work cooperatively with public school teachers doing research projects or doing extra professional development or writing grants to provide professional development for area teachers, and that's definitely related to the field. And then also service is contributing to the profession, and you can start that right now. This is something that took me a while to learn, but service to the profession in general, beyond the university. Get involved in at least one agency that as soon as somebody sees it in your tenure portfolio, they'll understand why you belong to that agency. You know, and the professional organization, I mean. So get involved in at least one at the local and or state and or national level. And national, like if there's a national conference, they're always looking for people to provide service. Like a good entry point is to be a presider at a conference proceeding. Those are the folks that, you know, make sure when the room is full, they shut the door, and then they introduce the speaker, and then they pick up the evaluations afterwards. You know, they're always looking for people who can review the proposals for presentations, and doing that really helps you know what they're looking for. So when you're ready to submit a proposal, it's like, oh, you know what the criteria are, you got this, you know. Serve on an awards committee, that's a lot of fun. I did that one time, I just fell into one time and ended up with like 120 free children's books because I was on the children's literature board, but I got to contribute to our college library. So I mean, sometimes things like that work really well. And then as you get settled into your role here at Murray State and you have a little more time to devote for more of a in-depth service opportunity, start seeking like some officer positions in a professional organization like at the state or regional level. It can lead into the national level as well. For example, I was real involved with, well, still am, the Kentucky Association of Teacher Educators, because that goes with, I mean, the professors of education like I am. And in that process, for the officers, it was like a 4-year process. You'd start off as like a assistant vice president, and then vice president, and then like interim president, and then president, and then you're like president emeritus or whatever. So it was a multi-year process, and I got in early on and had a lot of opportunities to get to know Western Kentucky Parkway and where all the potholes were. And after a period of years, then I eventually worked my way up to being president and all that. And serendipitously, it was exactly like when I was going up for tenure, it's like, all right, got this one, you know. But an even better aspect of that, not just for my own use, but for the profession in general, is I really developed a network of close friends and colleagues across the state. And that leads to opportunities to do collaborative research, collaborative presentations, and go to meetings and just have some really awesome conversations to enhance my ability to meet the students' needs here by adding some of their ideas, you know, Murray State too. If you have an accreditation agency or a specialized professional association affiliated with your field, get on their examiner board or their accreditation board. I've done a whole lot of work on that. It just was a personal interest because I'm an assessment nerd. But it really helped me really understand like what the criteria are for a quality program. And I became familiar with so many programs across the state and the nation that I was able to use that information to bring back to help other people. And then once you do get tenure and then you work your way up towards other levels of promotion, keep it going, because they need people to continue to be leaders on the committees and leaders at the state and national level, and also serve as mentors and role models for the new faculty, and then maybe to help give the new faculty a hands up. It's hard to get on a university committee.
Well, I was going to say, if you're doing what Jackie's suggesting, that gives us the opportunity as evaluators to say that you're bringing national visibility to Murray State University, right, if you're involved in a national organization. And if you are interested in getting more involved in your national organization, go to the business meeting. If you look at the conference program, there will be a business meeting. Go to that. Those will be the people who are officers and who are running things. Just meet them even after the meeting and tell them what you're interested in doing or asking how you could help. That's the trick to getting involved.
That's a good suggestion. That's real good.
And they always
I wish
have.
somebody had told me that 21 years ago.
Attaboy, you still survived. In terms of service and how to know how much or when and where, you're going to need service at all three levels, department, college, and university, plus professional. Again, this is decided by department. Ask your department. Some departments, I chaired English for almost 8 years, and we have a matrix that shows the point values for every committee. And so you can tell what is important. I think psychology has that and music has something like that. But different departments value things very differently. Music values recruiting. And so it's like required for faculty to recruit. So you need to find out what is important to your department. And don't make the mistake of moving outside of the department too soon or completely. So you should always be adding. So you start at the department level and then you'll add college and add university. Don't drop the department, because then what happens is colleagues in the department are upset that you're not helping with work in the department. Even though you might be doing all kinds of things at the university level, they need your help at the department level.
And you need to keep a balance on service too. I grew up in a family of servant leaders, and servant leadership is just who I am. It's just part of my DNA. And so when I came here, it was like a service buffet, you know, and I couldn't say no, because it was like all so awesome and so wonderful. And so got so involved in so much service that and teaching has always been my main priority, because I love teaching, that it was really difficult for me to carve out time for the research and creative activity. And then we had a special speaker come talk to us one time. He's well known in the education field. He's Dr. Kenneth Henson. And he was talking about how writing and publishing is a way to teach others and reach out to others. It wasn't a selfish, oh, look at me, I can write this. It was, I'm serving the profession and serving others and reaching people I can't possibly reach in a presentation or reach face to face. And once I got that mindset, I thought, oh, right, that was my ad eraser moment, Dr. Tom. And I went for it after that. And I made sure I found time to do the research and get really sucked into the computer and work on that. But you have to beware because time ticks very quickly. And so you have to really be cautious of how you're spending your time.
You were gonna say something.
I don't remember.
At the end of the day, when, over the last 11 years, as I've been a part of faculty interviewing in that process with all 6 departments in our college, what I like to say, what I like to try to convey to new faculty is that while we're not as sophisticated as some of the models that Dean Stone has as far as the numbers and the rubrics and the quantitative data, we actually are a little more vague under what we try to convey to the faculty, that if we are a little more vague, it allows you to kind of maneuver these 3, teaching, research, and service, the way you would like to. Now we have some numbers around some parameters, but there's variances and ranges in that. So what I like to say as a narrative for new faculty is that we started as a normal school, so teaching excellence is first. You have to be excellent in the classroom. From a research perspective, what I like to say is you need to be research productive. Nobody expects you to be writing super huge grants and publishing 5 articles a year and then having a book by the end of your 6 years, because your teaching load's too heavy. But you need to have research in the pipeline. If you're coming right out of PhD school or whatever your doctorate is, you need to have research or creative activity coming from whatever you did at your other institution and keep that pipeline going. So research productive. And then we always like to say service participant. You need to participate in service, and then as Dean Stone said, that really take notion in the direction of the department, of your colleagues and the chair, but especially your colleagues, on what that department values. Because at the end of the day, if there's a collegial aspect that's not working with you and your hallway colleagues, and in that 6-year time span, you get a no vote from your departmental colleagues, even though there's 7 more votes after it, that's tough. I mean, that's a tough situation, and it shouldn't happen. So take notice of where you come to your daily life and the people that you're daily around and your colleagues. I can't overemphasize that enough, because I think that's extremely important to have. In fact, the former dean of Stacy's College used to talk about and tried to get collegiality as an aspect of tenure earning here, and that's still. It hasn't been formalized.
We do it in our college.
You do in your college? So, the colleges, colleges or universities operate more like a multiversity than a university, because what is important in the business school may not be as important in the humanities and fine arts, and that may not be as important in education and human services. So it's very important to know at the building block of the departmental level what's valued, because that's where you have a daily life.
One way to find time to do it all, because it's all quite exciting, but it's also exhausting. Took me a while to figure this out, but I packaged things. So like if there was something I wanted to focus on in my teaching, developing my teaching efficacy, for example, differentiated instruction, like give different assignments according to student interest or student learning styles or whatever their profession's gonna be. I made that my research topic for the year. And all my articles and my presentations all went with that. And then a lot of times when I was preparing for a presentation at a conference, at least in education, I'd use that as my dry run for like my pre-writing activity. Like get my mind around it, my mouth around it, my research in place, my ideas in order. And then when I came back from that presentation, I'd write the article that went with it. And then all that information I also embedded into what I was teaching in my classes, which forced me to stay online on time, because, April 28th, I'm planning on doing a lesson on this, So by bundling those together, it really helped me to focus a whole lot more instead of like all over the place.
That is great advice. When you present at a conference, then revise and submit that piece so that you get an article out of it. Because it depends on the college, I guess. But in our college, conference presentations, performances matter, but conference presentations don't. I mean, we want to see them, but you need publications for the disciplines you're in.
If your conference had a juried proceedings, does that count? Okay.
Printed, yes. Published.
Printed, yeah, got it.
Or published online.
Yeah, because conferences, they request for papers. They you have to really look in to see if they really want a paper, like literature type thing, or, I mean, for a publication or something at the end, or if that's just a phrase they're using, meaning you're just gonna be presenting. That confused me at the beginning.
The other thing you might think about in terms of time management is, and it depends on the expectations in your department, but if you are allowed to have one publication that's not necessarily in your scholarly area of expertise, then you might think about whether there's a way to combine any service you're doing or teaching with a publication. So if you have some interesting, innovative pedagogical approach, that it seems to me that would count, but I don't know about the sciences. But in our college it does. So for example, I was in charge, we used to have a summer reading program for first year students, and I was in charge of that and assessing it, and I ended up with 2 articles out of that work. And I mean, had to go through IRB approval and everything, but so the service I was doing connected to publications, which really helped in terms of time management.
And work with your colleagues. In every college, there's some people who are really prolific writers who might be willing to edit and make suggestions when you're getting ready to submit something for publication. And this part took a long time for me to believe too, but believe in the quality of what you're writing. I mean, go for the brass ring, or go for the big guys to begin with. I started with state journals because I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. I go back and read some of those and thought, good heavens, honey, you could have gotten that possibly published in something a lot more prestigious. I mean, you might as well start with the big ones. You can always resubmit to somebody else later if you need to rework it.
Right, if there's not a writing group in your department, or perhaps departments that are similar to yours, then you might think about forming one, just where you exchange your work. I know in English and philosophy, there's at least one such group. Just so that you have so they did this so that they would have deadlines and get drafts done, and so they could submit manuscripts.
And when you're co-authoring at the very beginning, you need to have a very candid conversation about what order the names are on the article, because that matters in the long run as far as like when people are searching the web resources and stuff, or whose name comes up first. And sometimes there's just some political reasons that the names are in a certain order sometimes. Sometimes they go alphabetical, but I've always personally thought it should depend upon the amount of effort and contribution the person makes, you know. And you do need to have some that you are the lead person on or the sole person on. You can't always be like the 4th person in a group, at least in our college, you know. You need to make sure that you have a real active role in some of them.
Yes.
So my question is maybe going to sound pessimistic, but I wonder if you could speak about what you should do if you have concerns about how you're being assessed, or if, for example, department chairs change or deans change, and you have concerns about either the transparency of the process or how you're being evaluated. How does that work? Not anticipating that happening to any of us, but.
Well, your dean's about to change.
Yes, there is that.
Well, every year during your probationary period, you'll receive an evaluation from your departmental tenure committee.
Okay.
They'll review the materials that you submit for an annual evaluation, and that'll vary. What's submitted, that'll vary from department to department. But you'll have that evaluation, and you'll have an evaluation from your department chair, and then you'll have at least a meeting with the dean of your college, and you'll have written feedback from all 3 of those meetings. Okay. And if for some reason those meetings aren't happening, then that needs to be communicated up through to the provost's office, because that's required in the faculty handbook. So even if chairs might perhaps change or deans might perhaps change, which sometimes it seems like that's going on all the time, but it really doesn't happen all that often. But that said, you're going to have a documented record year after year after year. Here's what was said. Here's the feedback that I received. So even if the people that are evaluating you might change somewhat, there's still that record of what went before it. And if all of a sudden, if you've been receiving, glowing chair evaluations for 4 years in a row, and all of a sudden in year 5, your new chair says, well, this is the worst faculty member I've ever seen, there are other people on campus that are going to notice that and go, oh, now wait a minute here, something's not right. Okay, so I think you can feel pretty secure that something like that is not going to negatively impact you.
As a new dean, I went back and reviewed what the former dean had told pre-tenured faculty to see what they were supposed to be working on before I evaluated them last year. So I would think that a new chair or new dean would probably do that as well.
I did too, because I had to kind of find out, like, what am I supposed to say? It really helps.
Any other questions?
Like, you need to keep copies of all those evaluations and find out how they're taken care of at your college level.
Well, you're gonna need those documents when you submit your tenure package anyway. That's part of what you need to include in that tenure package.
Any other questions? Any last thoughts from our wonderful administrators here? Last words of wisdom?
I'm glad you put this on. I think this is very valuable. I hope you all have received it that way.
We have this every year as part of our new faculty academy, and I hope, last week, just to give you some idea, we did a workshop for those faculty getting ready to go up for tenure within the next 2 years, because now they're getting ready to hit that peak of the mountain. So so hopefully maybe if the new faculty development center director can continue that, maybe, when we come back, see you again, in 3 to 4 years, then maybe some good refreshers, tweakers, things like that. So,
You need to believe in yourself and believe what you have to share is amazing. Because that'll give you the confidence you need to do what you need to do to get the word out of the wonderful ideas you have to contribute to the profession. So believe in yourself.
And the 2 bits of advice that I would leave you with are, one, and I've never told first-year faculty to do this, you could ask for a sample tenure packet from somebody. I always tell people who are about to go up to get one from somebody in their department to see what it's supposed to look like.
We do that.
We have models posted in the Department of English Canvas site. It might be helpful even looking at that from the first year, just to see what that looks like. And then 2, if you have come to us from another institution where you are a full-time faculty member, whether it was visiting or tenure line, and you do not know about prior service, you need to ask about it this year, because it's available this year and not after this year.
That's
I mean,
correct.
it's your department chair is who you should talk to about whether there's prior service, whether you qualify, whether you would be recommended.
You do that during your first year.
That's with the department head or with the dean?
What do you think?
Actually, both. I'd start with the chair. And those administrators are always going to err to the side for your benefit. So if they think that it's not to your benefit to give you 2 years of prior service, because once you get it, if you don't rescind it within a year, then you're on the clock. It starts your clock early. So at the end of the day, one of the most expensive things this university does is hire a faculty member and then let them go. I mean, you know, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment that then just leaves. So everyone here wants the tenure track faculty to be successful. So if you ask for prior credit based on your experience, but your chair or dean wants to kind of slow that down a little bit, don't take that in an offensive way, because they're trying to watch out for you.
And we don't make those recommendations until the spring after you've been evaluated your first semester, because the annual evaluation is just this fall for you all. So we can see teaching evaluations and scholarly productivity.
Let me add, make sure that you're clear about this prior service credit. I don't know whether that applies to any of you or not, but the awarding of tenure is based upon your performance at Murray State University. Okay, so even if you're coming in with a stellar career at another university and lots of publications and lots of grants, well, that'll, you know, that will influence us on your level of productivity. That technically, all of those publications aren't going to be counted as part of your performance at Murray State University. So generally you award prior service credit because the prior service indicates that somebody is already performing at a high level, and so it shouldn't take them as long to demonstrate that level of performance at this university. Now, if that makes sense or not.
If you have an extraordinary life event, and like if you need a year to recover from an automobile accident or something, as soon as you realize it might kind of slow down your ability to keep on the clock ticking, contact your chair and your dean, and there's a process involved that they might be able to help just pause the clock for a while and then start it ticking again.
Yeah, I've been involved in a couple of those, so it's not common, but it's not rare. It happens.
And all of this is covered in the faculty handbook.
Yeah, it's all in there.
Definitely
Yeah.
look at the faculty
75 to
handbook.
85.
Well, if there is nothing else, thank you all so much, and thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Rogers, thank you.
You already have it, I know, but there's copies for you too.
Good luck with everything.
Yes, good luck.